And welcome back to this week's edition of Conservative Arkansas Media. My name is Paul Harrell. Thank you so much for being with us as always. Man, we got a interesting show. A lot of news has happened, international news, international implications from a little-known law that was passed earlier this year, back in April, Act 636, which has to do with empowering the Attorney General of the state of Arkansas to force Chinese-owned companies, or really any company that is loyal, has a foreign loyalty, to essentially divest if they own property, infrastructure here in the state of Arkansas. Huge, huge news, in my opinion, as somebody who has devoted much of my coverage when I have reported on different events in Arkansas has been towards this idea that China doesn't have the best interest of America at heart. Not really that controversial of opinion, although the last administration here in Arkansas, under the leadership of Governor Asa Hutchinson, was just, quite frankly, for lack of a better term, hell-bent on getting Chinese businesses loyal to the Communist Chinese Party to locate right here in Arkansas and actually give them taxpayer incentives, taxpayer money, taxpayer breaks. It's just, I couldn't believe it. And then, of course, when Donald Trump got into office, and he had a completely different approach from, the normal foreign policy, both Democrat or Republican, when it came to China, he pushing back on the tariffs and, trying to get some economic fairness here in, just across the global economy. And all of a sudden, there was a stark contrast between the Republican Asa Hutchinson, who now thinks he's going to be president, to, Donald Trump in terms of their China policy. Trump was very much anti-China, and Asa was trying to recruit Chinese communist companies to come here. As a matter of fact, did business with them. Of course, we know that coverage. We talked about it many times, but just before we get to, because there's an interesting press conference that happened yesterday between Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders as well as Attorney General Tim Griffin. We're going to get to that here in just a moment. Other legislators were there as well, but just to remind you guys what a stark policy shift that this is from the previous administration. This is a piece that I wrote over at nationalfile.com. Of course, Asa Hutchinson and his son are doing business with the Chinese communists. Joe and Hunter Biden aren't the only father and son team turning on America for communist China. I mean, anytime I get the chance to bring something like this up, I do, because nobody is talking about it, especially the fact that, Asa is trying to run for president. Nobody really wants to talk about the mini Joe and Hunter Biden that came right here out of Arkansas. Wouldn't be the first time political families that are corrupt come out of the state of Arkansas, now would it? Here is just an update. This was just to kind of refresh your memory here. In 2016, TY Garments USA was offered an annual tax rebate worth nearly $1.6 million, including a $1 million infrastructure assistance grant and $500,000 stipend for work training. In 2017, Rise Ever Machinery announced they were coming to Jonesboro. The state offered the company $1 million from a state incentive fund and a $100,000 training grant. In April 2019, Dragon Woodland Corporation in Helena, West Helena, held its grand opening. They received more than $1 million. These are the same Chinese companies, by the way, that received sweetheart deals. They're the same ones that are doing business with Asa Hutchinson's law firm. Now, I'm sure Asa Hutchinson, the presidential candidate, would say the law firm that my son runs, but boy, if you look into it and if you continue reading that article, it is certainly gray at best. At best, it is a gray scenario, gray situation. Here is, the other day, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, this video credit to Forbes, decided to make an announcement about Syngenta, which is a seed company. They've got agricultural land in northeast Arkansas, specifically Craighead County, 160 acres, and they have been ordered to get rid of it. They've been ordered to just basically, get out. You guys are a Chinese loyal. You're loyal to the Chinese communists, and we don't want you here. And we don't want you owning land here in Arkansas. Here's Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders from the other day.
It is great to be here this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. It's good to be here with our Attorney General, Secretary Ward, President Hester, and so many of our great legislators from around the state. I have to say this past week has been pretty eye-opening. I, along with every Arkansan, have watched as the events unfolding in Israel. We have watched that in horror and sadness. The details are almost too terrible to describe, especially for someone like me who has had the privilege of visiting the Holy Land and building lifelong friendships with a number of Israelis. But one thing is clear: America's enemies are on the march. They are cunning, they are brutal, and they will stop at nothing to harm America and our allies. We know who our enemies are: an authoritarian Russia and a Chinese Communist Party whose stated goal is to defeat the United States at every turn. Yet for too long, in the name of tolerance, we've let these dangerous governments infiltrate our country. Arkansas will tolerate them no longer.
Now that is huge. Arkansas will no longer tolerate the communist Chinese infiltrating our country. That's a big deal. You know, and I know she mentioned Russia. Let me back this up a little bit, because I know she did. Hang on.
But a regime in Iran that chants death to America, an authoritarian Russia, and a Chinese Communist Party.
So an authoritarian Russia. So here's the deal. And this is what I screamed for years and years and years, because this was back during the Russia collusion hoax. You know, they framed Donald Trump for treason, and they tried to say he was a Russian agent, which is preposterous, right? And my point was, because of the mainstream narrative, and look, the mainstream media certainly knows how to play up our Soviet Union fears from the 1980s. Red Dawn, Rocky IV, you know what I mean, right? And that's what was going on during the entire Trump administration, trying to say that Russia is the same Russia it was during the Soviet Union. But what I was saying was, at the time, during all that Russia hysteria, which is obviously continued in the Ukraine-Russia war, what would the press say if Asa Hutchinson was inking deals with the Russians and having the Russians come over here and give them taxpayer dollars, give them taxpayer incentives? And people would rightfully, understandably, correctly be like, that seems that we shouldn't do that. That doesn't seem like a very good idea. It doesn't seem like that would be a good idea for the American people, right? I mean, because we're America and we need to help American. If we're going to, it's a whole nother debate, the government picking winners and losers and giving away taxpayer dollars to private companies. I mean, that's a debate in and of itself. But if you're going to do it, which, from state to state, it seems to be the consensus that you're never going to stop it. Well, shouldn't it rather go to Americans? I mean, likewise, if you're never going to stop welfare, it needs to go to Americans. It doesn't need to go to all these people coming across the border. Oh, and by the way, I mean, this has been a slow infiltration. You've got the porous border. The border is more wide open than it's ever been. And you don't just have, Mexicans and people from South America. You also have Chinese nationals. You have people from the Middle East, people who are sympathetic to Hamas. I mean, Hamas, essentially, we have Hamas immigrants who are now, we have Middle East immigrants who are sympathetic to Hamas, and you're seeing that all over, these protests break out all over the country, here in our own country, and that's because of a porous border and a terrible immigration policy, by the way, and we're about to reap the fruits of that. We're about to reap the fruits of our leaders that actually don't care anything about us, not enough to secure the border. And now we have all of these people here that, at a moment's notice, regardless of what trying to decipher propaganda from the Middle East or whatever part of the world's going on, you have a whole group of people over here that are going to take they're going to take the message, the narrative that best suits their worldview, which is anti-America, because we have people coming here that don't want to be Americans. They want America to fall. They want America to completely change. And so, this is unbelievable what's going on at the border in relation to all of this. And so, I mean, there's essentially a pack of policies that we need to have. And this anti-China or anti-Russia or any anti-owning land in Arkansas policy is one that needs to take fire all across the nation. It needs to happen everywhere. And I think this is a good first step for, the national security of the country, but specifically here in the state of Arkansas. Why would we want other countries to own large swaths of agricultural land when we need that agricultural land to feed ourselves, which is going to be a very, I hate to say it, I think it's going to be a very valuable resource very, very soon. Continue.
whose stated goal is to defeat the United States at every turn. Yet for too long, in the name of tolerance, we've let these dangerous governments infiltrate our country. Arkansas will tolerate them no longer. Today, we are becoming the first state in the country to take an action like the one that we are announcing right now. At the beginning of my term, my administration worked with our partners in the legislature to get hostile foreign entities out of Arkansas. I was proud to sign Act 636, sponsored by Senator Johnson and Representative Vaught, banning foreign parties from 9 enemy countries from owning agricultural land in Arkansas. And today, we are acting on that law.
Now she just needs to do Bill Gates. If we can just get Bill Gates to be banned from owning land in Arkansas and across the country, then we would really be winning.
I'm announcing that Syngenta, a Chinese state-owned agrochemical company, must give up its land holdings in Arkansas. Syngenta owns 160 acres in northeast Arkansas, which it uses primarily for seed research. The company that owns Syngenta, ChemChina, is also on the Department of Defense's list of Chinese military companies posing a clear threat to our state. Seeds are technology. Chinese state-owned corporations filter that technology back to their homeland, stealing American research and telling our enemies how to target American farms. That is a clear threat to our national security and to our great farmers.
Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders is exactly right here, and we have a flashback article for you from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette back on August the 3rd of 2018. Look at this headline. Back then, 2 Chinese researchers indicted years after visit to Arkansas Center accused of trying to steal rice production technology. A federal grand jury has indicted 2 rice researchers from China accused of conspiring to steal rice technology from a research center in Arkansas. Now, back when this happened, I was like, well, surely Asa Hutchinson will, he'll wake up to the fact that we don't need to be doing business with communist Chinese. We look at what's happening here. We're vulnerable. No, he didn't care about that. He just kind of went on and did his normal thing. The deal had been made, I guess. The indictments announced Friday, again back in 2018, are linked to a Chinese delegation's trip in 2013 to the Dale Bumpers National Rice Research Center in Stuttgart. 2 others have been convicted or pleaded guilty previously in a related case. So that's what Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders here is talking about. Just so you know, this is not unprecedented.
Especially since the Chinese government enacted a law in 2017 requiring Chinese citizens abroad to collaborate with their country's security officials on intelligence work with no questions asked. This isn't about where you're from. We welcome Chinese Americans, Russian Americans, and anyone else who's given up foreign oppression for American freedom. This is about where your loyalties lie. We simply cannot trust those who pledge allegiance to a hostile foreign power. That's why I signed Act 525, sponsored by Representative McKenzie and Senator Boyd, to ban Chinese and Russian-made drones. And it's why I signed Act 758, sponsored by Representative McAlinden and Senator Stubblefield, banning public contracts with the CCP. We will make sure that every company operating in Arkansas is a friend to Arkansas and good to hardworking Arkansans. Secretary Ward has already notified Syngenta about this decision. If they refuse to sell, our Attorney General can move forward with legal proceedings and force them to get out of our state. Arkansas will always protect our farmers and our national security interest. I want to thank our legislature for passing this common sense measure, and I want to thank the Department of Agriculture for working so hard on this issue. I will now turn it over to Attorney General Griffin to address his team's next steps.
Common sense. Yeah, it is. It is common sense. If you care about America and the idea that, countries are supposed to have borders, countries are supposed to have a people that share common values and be able to say we don't have the same values as a country like China. I mean, it's common sense. Now, it is not I will say this. I mean, in the 21st century, it's thought of to be a regressive idea. It's the whole concept of globalism versus nationalism. I mean, this is certainly an America first or Arkansas first policy that is now being enacted, and it is common sense and it is a no-brainer. It's incredible to me that it took this long, although, you know what? I'm so glad that it's happening. I'm so glad that finally the policy is reflecting the beliefs of the people of Arkansas. I mean, back when we were uncovering all of the Chinese infiltration here in the state of Arkansas, you wouldn't believe the amount of people that were outraged by this. Nothing happened, though, because the deals had been made. The deals had been made, and the law firm was collecting what the law firm was collecting. I mean, it was visa immigrant stuff, but that's the same thing that Tony Bobulinski said, that Hunter Biden said when he was the chief legal counsel for the Chinese Communist country, CEFC, by the way. He told that to Tucker Carlson right before the election, but of course that was before Elon Musk owned Twitter, and so nobody cared because nobody knew to care. Here's Attorney General Tim Griffin.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. I want to provide a little context here. I could tell you that the idea that the Chinese government would care about non-military assets is exactly what they've demonstrated over the last few decades. In fact, we had congressional hearings in the late 90s in Washington on dual-use technologies, civilian-related technologies that the Chinese were obtaining from the United States. There is nothing that's off limits for them if they think that it will strengthen them strategically, whether it be related to engineering or the ability to feed their people, which is a challenge for them. We've had some instances and some federal prosecutions in this state that relate to seed technology. And so for those of you who think that this is some sort of outlier, you're wrong. I've been in the military for almost 30 years, and I can tell you one of the consistent themes of the last decade at least has been warnings about the Communist Chinese, what they will do and what they are doing. So this is smart and this is strategic. So let me tell you what my role here today is. I've written a letter, which I'll be sending today, to Northrop King, Seed, and Syngenta, informing them that they have to divest themselves of the land that they have in Craighead County. And they have 2 years, as of about a month ago, a little over a month ago, to do that. If they don't do that, then we can take legal action. We have no reason to believe that they won't do that. Also, back in 2021, the legislature, with very, very forward-looking, I will say, for the legislature to pass a law that requires these companies owned by foreign entities to file and disclose. And in this particular case, the latest the disclosure, the ownership of this land could have been filed was June of last year. It was late. And so under that law, also I appreciate this, the AG can fine a civil penalty, can fine the company a civil penalty up to 25% maximum, doesn't have to be 25%, but up to 25% of the value of the property. The property in this case is $1.12 million, according to Syngenta's own federal filing. And so I am imposing the maximum fine of $280,000 on the company, and I am informing them of that in the letter as well. Thank you.
All right, so that's Attorney General Tim Griffin hitting them with the maximum fine This has all been a long time coming. Now, the Secretary of Agriculture, I believe, is Wes Ward. Now, so this is kind of the way the law works is that the Secretary of Agriculture is an intricate component of this. Matter of fact, in this, here it is. Under Acts 636, the Arkansas Department of Agriculture reports ownership of agricultural land by a prohibited foreign party-controlled business to the Attorney General, who can initiate legal action. So I believe Wes Ward is up to the podium next. Let's see what he has to say.
Good morning, everybody. Wes Ward from the Arkansas Department of Agriculture, and the governor and the attorney general have covered pretty thoroughly what's happening today. And so I just want to take a quick moment to echo that and just the importance of Arkansas agriculture, our state's largest industry, and the connection to our national security. So certainly every event that we've had with the governor, with Governor Sanders, on a broad range of agricultural topics, she always starts at the beginning of every time that she has had an ag event, the connection between agriculture and our national security. So it is top of mind, obviously, for her, for us at the Department of Agriculture. So we certainly appreciate your leadership, Governor, the Attorney General, and to the members of the state legislature for your partnership and this important topic. So we'll just echo again the importance of agriculture here in the state of Arkansas, the connection to our national security. The case is pretty clear. We've done a thorough review, and we know that there are questions about foreign ownership of agricultural land throughout the United States. We're working actively to make sure that those questions are answered and that we continue to protect our state's largest industry as well as our security, both in Arkansas and across the country. And today, with the governor's help, we're sending a pretty strong message of how important that is and that what will be prohibited in the state of Arkansas.
Again, if the Russian government were to buy land in Arkansas, everybody would be saying, well, what's going on here, right? Again, especially with the Russia hysteria that's, taking hold. But everybody was okay with it with China. I mean, there's I don't know how they did it, I guess with large amounts of cash. I mean, you have the late Dianne Feinstein. I mean, her limo driver or whatever, her driver was a Chinese spy, for years. For, years and years. Then you got Democrat Eric Swalwell, who, he was sleeping with a Chinese spy, Fang Fang. Right? I mean, our entire government is captured not just by Chinese influence, but by a ton of foreign influence. I mean, if you want to know why, and this is kind of an evolving opinion, but if you want to know why our leaders at the federal level, it's quite obvious that they hate the people. They don't love the people. They hate the people they serve. Well, it's because they're all taking foreign money. I mean, you've heard Senator Rand Paul in past allude to the fact that foreign aid is essentially a giant money laundering scam. I mean, what do you think we've been doing sending all this money to Ukraine? Right? I mean, there are reports that not only is Zelensky selling weapons, and some of those weapons ended up in the hands of Hamas, by the way, according to reports, but there's also reports that Zelensky is taking a lot of that money and still has positive banking relationships with Russia, by the way. There is an obscure report over at nationalfile.com where 2 Ukrainian cabinet members fled the country for their lives, and they claim that Zelensky's actually working with Putin to drain U.S. resources to make us weaker because we're on the verge of an economic collapse, and he actually has money. He's putting U.S. dollars back over into Russian banks that he still has a relationship with. I mean, now you don't hear that on Fox News or MSNBC or any of the places right now. It's not allowed, right? But we clearly have, by the way, a plot to basically get the United States into as many wars as we possibly can at a time when we can't afford it, at a time when our border is being overrun, at a time where people don't have the money to feed themselves at the grocery store because of inflation. Again, our leaders do not love us. It's clear that they hate us by their actions, by any objective standard. They don't do anything that actually helps us. Now, here at the state level is the silver lining. And this is what I've been saying, whether it's fighting back the transing of children, or in this case, standing up for the national security of America right here in Arkansas with Arkansas policy. As long as the states are left alone to govern themselves, which is, easier said than done, I think we can get out of all of this mess. I really do. With legislators who are Christian and patriotic. Those are my thoughts anyway. Tell me what you think. Sound off in the Facebook comments or in the YouTube video. My name is Paul Harrell. This is Conservative Arkansas Media. I wanted to bring you this huge policy update, huge policy shift from Asa Hutchinson to Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. What a blessing for the people of Arkansas and the people of America, quite frankly, because this could start a chain reaction, a domino effect where other states start to do the same thing and force communist Chinese companies to divest and leave our great country. We'll see you next time.